pita telema yakatobina kopangate yolule kala eza kopeta imbote.
Good morning, everybody. If you could grab your coffee and your tea and have a seat, we are ready to start.
Muziki nzuri toka Afrika, chana na uchio twakatika, utaukuta barabara ni nyumbani palipote mama. Muziki waleta raha aona, muziki uponyeshwa magonjwa, sisi twausherea bila matatizo, joni kwetu mandekota nani wakuwania kabie.
Good morning, please have a seat. We are ready for you. What?
Hello everyone. We're about to get started in a couple of minutes. If you want to find your seat, or right now is ideal.
Just start?
Yeah, just start. I just start. It would fly everyone out.
Good morning, friends. I am ready to start. I'm going to start with a prayer. Let us pray. O God, creator of our land, our earth, the trees, the animals, and humans, all is for your honor. The drums beat it out, and people sing about it, and they dance with noisy joy that you are the Lord. You have pulled the other continents out of the sea. What a wonderful world you have made out of the wet mud, and what beautiful men and women. We thank you for the beauty of this earth. Amen. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Deborah Smith, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to speak to you about a trip that a group from this parish took last January. 18 of us spent 10 days in beautiful Tanzania in Eastern Africa. It was about a year ago that Karen Royce approached me. We were upstairs in the bookstore and asked me if I was interested in accompanying the group on the trip. And I had long heard about the trip, and I was very interested. But I will say that if I thought of Africa, it had never been high on my list of places I was eager to travel to. And I think that's in large part because when I closed my eyes and I thought of Africa, it was actually the negative stereotypes that came rushing in. When I thought Africa, and I'm not proud of this at all, and I knew it wasn't right, but if I thought Africa, I thought drought, starvation, disease, poverty, war. In short, I had a sad story about Africa, one of deficit. And deprivation. And that's actually a good reason to go on the trip, to push back against that narrative. But ultimately, there was a big pull to attend this trip for me because I was an English teacher for years. I've been a teacher all of my professional life. And I had left teaching. I had the time to go, but I was very, very interested in seeing this much talked about school that was called The Miracle in the Bush. And I knew that Karen and Cheryl had done amazing things there, and that there were now over 650, no, there are even more now, 750 students in this thriving school. I was very, very curious about that. I also was reassured because whenever they would talk about Tanzania and their Tanzanian partners, they talked with such respect for them. And that was important to me. I didn't want to go down there and feel like I was helping from this place of superiority. There was never a trace of that with them. It came from this place of quiet humility and respect. And it reminded me of this beautiful Aboriginal quote: "If you've come to help us, you're wasting your time. If you recognize that your liberation is bound up with ours, then let us work together." And that's what I felt from them, was this respect and this beautiful mutuality. So I had to pull up my map. I was like, I knew, where was Tanzania exactly? Well, here it is. It's a long, long trip in southeastern Africa. So I flew to Amsterdam first, and then a 3-hour layover, and then a 9-hour flight to Kilimanjaro International Airport. I remember distinctly sitting in my, for the second leg of that trip, and I was sitting in my seat in the airplane. It was very dark. Most people were sleeping. I had chosen not to caffeinate in Amsterdam because I thought, I'm going to sleep, but I could not sleep on that second leg because I was so excited. And I remember I was looking at the map on the screen in front of me, and I just thought, wow, I saw Egypt and Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya, and I thought, wow, I'm really, really doing this. And from the moment we arrived, that story that I had about Africa as this place of drought and dryness, our very first stay was in a beautiful old coffee farm called River Trees. And it was green and it was lush, and the bird song was beautiful. And as I lay in my bed at night, I could hear the river rushing by. So all the what ifs that had gone through my head. What if I accidentally drink the water and get sick? What if I get malaria? What if the food doesn't agree? None of that happened. None of it. They did, however, hand me my keys for my room at the first place. And there was a key, as you can see. And they said, and here's your monkey whistle. And I said, excuse me, monkey whistle? It said, yes, the monkeys can be very pesky, so if you leave your things out, they will take them and take them up into the trees, and so if you see them, just blow the whistle. So all the things, it's very amusing to me now to think about the things that I worried about, and then actually the things that I encountered. And then you can see on my key, it says African monarch, and for me, personally, the monarch butterfly has always been a symbol of transformation, and I knew that this was going to be a trip of transformation for me. There was a sign. And from the moment we arrived, our group, we didn't know each other very well beforehand, but our group began to embrace Tanzanian ways of being. And one was, we were outside all of the time, which I absolutely loved. It just felt so liberating and wonderful and energizing to be in nature. But we were also with each other all of the time. We would tell stories, we would support each other, we would laugh, we ate communal meals, as you can see. This is a beautiful vista, the place we were staying at Tarangire. But our meals were communal, and we really grew these beautiful relationships with each other, which was a beautiful way to go through the experience together, processing it together. We would gather every night at 5 o'clock before dinner, and somebody would lead the group, we'd throw out a question, and people would share their impressions of the day. And it was wonderful. We also had very close contact with Tanzanians. That was another thing that drew me to the trip. I didn't want to travel and be, locked away in a hotel in a bubble, but we constantly had this wonderful contact with these warm, gracious people. This was at 7 o'clock in the morning, and this waitress on the right, she found out, I introduced myself, I said, "Hi, my name is Deborah." She said, "Me too!" And from that moment, she said, "We need a picture," and she ran up, and you can see her pushing her cheek against mine. Let's get a picture. And then from then on, she called me Dada, which means sister. And Tanzanians refer to each other this way. It's always, brother and sister and mama. And so their web of relationships is just beautiful and rich, and they were very eager to embrace us. Here, quite literally, she was wonderful. And here we're celebrating Eucharist overlooking the Serengeti. Merrick led us in a beautiful service there. And it all feels so new. All those beautiful, familiar words, yes, but it all feels so new in that glorious setting. We visited a workshop called Shanga, and most of the workers there are Tanzanians with disabilities. Many of them were deaf. This gentleman here who taught me beading, and I'm still wearing the necklace, the bracelet that he put on my wrist. You can see that he's in a wheelchair. So we never stayed too far. Our guide there, who's the gentleman in the back, he gathered us together, and since many of them were deaf, they taught us, be sure to say hello to each one. He gave us a bunch of hand symbols so we could talk and interact, and this was the way it was. Aha. And church. The first Sunday we went to church, and would you like to pick up here? This is Paige. She was on our trip. So great to have her on our trip. She was going to talk about the church.
So the church, it was initially so different from our churches because you just feel right in the atmosphere right when you arrive. It's so inviting. When you're in the service, you just get enveloped with dance and liveliness and movement, and you feel so connected with these people. Even though I didn't speak a word to them until after the service. But I still felt connected over music, and kids were allowed to run freely throughout the church, and it was all just connection. It was nothing like our church. But okay, guys, wait, that was terrible. But no, guys, wait, hold on.
Here, let me play this one. No, I absolutely agree with what she's saying. Is that the connection was just so palpable. So you walk in, and here's the choir. I know exactly what Paige is getting at. We are known as the Frozen Chosen, right? We all know that. And it is said that when we attend church, we attend from our shoulders up. It's more, we're thinking a lot. And this trip helped me to feel more and get in our bodies. These are folks who know how to pray with their feet and how to move, and the energy, as you were saying, is electric. So keep going. This is a beautiful girl. Her name was Grace. Called her Amazing Grace. And so I wanted to say what Paige said, which is the children were just moving freely. This is this idea of the connectedness where, you have your own biological mother, yes, but any woman can be your mother. And watch what happened here. Oh, tell her you wanted to say that.
I felt so inspired by their music and their hospitality. So I felt that I wanted to give back to them because I felt that I wanted to share what I had because they shared so much of what they had. And I sang Amazing Grace for them. in this video.
This is the very end of the service. It sounds not so good.
And they started playing with me. They made me feel that I was a part of their community, intertwined within their community, even though I just met them.
I nearly fell out of my pew when I heard her singing. I have listened to her sing here, or watched her sing, that is, as part of the choir for years. I had no idea you could sing like that. I was standing there, I was saying, what? So they were bringing us closer together by helping us connect in different ways. And watch what happens. This is the last verse.
And they all sang to make up. I just want to define one of the phrases we use very often, asante sana, and it was one of the biggest takeaways from our trip. It was just thank you. Thank you for everything. Just thank you. This trip really taught me the power of being grateful and caring about what you have. And asante sana.
So I was really looking forward to the day when we would visit Ndupoto School. I had brought, as many of the travelers had, school supplies in my suitcase, so I put them all in my backpack, and we drove about an hour in our Land Rover outside of Arusha. I'm thinking, how can there possibly be a school here? There was no road. We would pass farmers on the way. They are subsistence farmers, and they are very dependent on the rain for their livelihood, nomadic people. And the signs of climate change were everywhere. The desertification, the dust, the low water level in the rivers, the great cracks in the earth. That was all, of course, very concerning. And here's the unassuming sign. I had no idea what was about to happen. They sent a greeting party from the school as we approached, and here they are. I played that video all the way to the very end so you could see their excitement. I had prepared myself that morning. I'd woken up, and I was bracing myself to feel sadness for their lack. And I got there, and they were just exploding with joy. At the end of this day, I didn't even know what to write in my journal. I'm a big journaler. I came back to my room, and all I wrote is, I feel as if I've been fire hosed with joy. And then I wrote, I am changed. And then it's all blank after that. So this was just the greeting party. And then they scooped up Paige. What?
I had to join.
Yeah, you had to join in. Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
And then we approached the school, and I could see the sea of blue, and I thought, what is that? It looked like a mirage. It was all children, 650 children, standing out in the sun, waiting for us. Jambo means hello. And they sang, and they sang, and they sang. Here they are singing a song about Tanzania. Their greeting of us, I remember I turned to Merrick. Merrick, do you remember this? I said, our greeting committee needs to up its game, Merrick. This is over the top. So all of this, I wasn't sure why we were there. I thought at first, are they celebrating us? Are they celebrating Karen and Cheryl? I don't get it. But then I understood they were celebrating their school community. For them, this school means regular food for their kids. It means education and a shot at economic viability. It's clean water. It is this beautiful, thriving community, and that's what they were celebrating. I finally got it. So we had the opportunity to walk into individual classrooms together. Every time we walked into a new classroom, this is what would happen. It's so hard to try to convey how much beautiful energy you felt. It was just, I'll use that word again, electric, walking into these classrooms. And again, when I think back that I was expecting to feel sad, they're not focused on what they don't have. And they don't have backpacks and, smart boards and, iPhones, right? None of that. They have each other, and they have song, and I don't want to gloss over the fact that their lives are hard, and half the country lives in poverty, and the average Tanzanian makes $160 a month, which is much less, of course, in rural areas. But I'll hold off on that. And look how crowded the benches are, and yet they're all locked on. We were so proud of their work. They were showing me their work. We had an opportunity to teach them a song. So we decided to go for "The Wheels on the Bus Go Round and Round," because it had a lot of good repetition. It was pretty simple. It was, had some good hand movements. So there we are leading this group. And we had this Jackson here in the middle. He's an administrator at the school. He's wonderful, dynamic, fabulous, translator also. So I remember explained everything about school buses, and kids in the United States don't live where they can walk to their schools, so they go on these buses and da-da-da. So I sang the first line. Do you remember this? The wheels on the bus go round and round. And they sang it right back. And so I turned to Jackson and I said, "Oh, they already know this song?" He said, "No." And I said, how are they repeating it right back? He said, "Well, they're listening." And this happened again and again. I, as a teacher here, I had never in my life encountered students whose attention span was fully intact and who had the ability to, it's a sad statement, but it's absolutely true. You try to teach and to try to compete with the telephones, and they're 100% locked on, and they can sing it right right back. I was shocked. Oh, this is hilarious. Okay, so Jackson, after we sang the song, I had some questions I wanted to ask them, so he said, okay, I'm gonna ask you, raise your hand when we get to your favorite subject. Who likes math? And then every single hand went up, okay? Who likes history? Every single hand went up. Who likes it? Everyone, again and again and again. This was the enthusiasm. And so then I said, okay, I'm going to go back to the United States and I'm going to tell them how excited you are about learning, because I think some of my students have forgotten. And I don't think we do a great job always making our teaching relevant to them, but that's another conversation. So I said, show me, I'm going to take a video, ask me what you think about school, what you think about learning, I think it was, and this is what they did. Wow. I also taught them how to do high fives. I was teaching them about American teenagers and what they do when they're psyched. So, like, woohoo! So we taught them that, and then they practiced. They got a big kick out of that. So why don't you do about your classroom?
Well, wait.
So here, explain.
Oh, well, we were receiving a prayer for a classroom built in my dad's honor, and I felt that they really, I'm glad that I think I received, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how I can word this. Although I also gave, that we gave them a classroom and a way to learn, while they also gave me like an emblem to remember, a symbol of my dad and how he influenced other people. And I know that he was watching down on this moment, and he was there in our hearts, and he would have been so, so proud of the work we've done, what we've learned, and he would have loved the trip with his whole heart, because his whole entire personality was about giving back and giving to one another and connection, and that was what this trip was about. And I know that he just would have loved it, and I'm glad that we could have this in remembrance of him.
Yeah, so this was a beautiful moment where Ed's mother, Pat Beatty, she was here somewhere, and then Ed's wife, Michelle, and then his two daughters were gathered at this beautiful new classroom. I would love how the children would just stare at me. There's a taboo against staring here too, but not as much there. And so they would just stare at me, and I'm thinking, and oftentimes scowl, and I'm thinking they're thinking, what is wrong with your skin? You need to get to a hospital quickly. I need to wrap up, but after all of the excitement at the school, I was like, wow, what a full day. Oh no, that was not it. And then we had lunch, and then it was a full afternoon of more, you guessed it, singing and dancing. And this time it involved the entire community. So here again, this is a school that is supporting this beautiful intergenerational community.
Also, although these people, they didn't have a lot, or they would make they would use creation as a gift, as a way to give, and I think that's even more important. I remember I got a bracelet from one of the girls from the Maasai tribe, and I still have it sitting there, and I look at it all the time, and I realize the importance of creation, and especially as a musician myself, like, I see the importance of putting in hard work and effort to give back to one another. And I thought it was such a beautiful thing, because all we do in Christmas, I feel these days, are buy something at a store, and it takes no effort, no thought. You just find something and purchase it. But these people, they know how to speak to the heart and how to communicate with love. And I thought that creation is a very beautiful way to show that.
So I'll wrap up there. I know Jane is going to talk about the safari, which is also incredible. But I want to go back to how I was feeling at the start of the trip, and how I had this sad story about Africa, which I know is also a very, colonialist, racist story. But I ended up at the end of that school day feeling kind of sad for my own students, honestly. Because it feels that we have lost our way in certain ways. The ability to be fully present, the ability to be joyful while we're learning. They have a relaxed pace. So when you introduce yourself to someone, it's not in a rush kind of way. It's just a lot of real connection. They're also living lightly on the earth, which is certainly something that we need to emulate. I will stop there. I actually have even more videos. I was so excited. I wanted to include everything, but I'm going to turn this now over to Jane Snowden.
So Debbie and Paige did a wonderful job of describing the kindness, warmth, generosity, and community among the faithful congregations in Arusha and Endaputo. Next, I would like to share the wonder, majesty, wildness, and diversity of God's kingdom throughout Tanzania, and the awestruck feeling of being such a small speck in the cycle of life. This map shows the 4 parks that we visited in Tanzania, starting with Arusha National Park, going south to Tarangire, and then north to Ngorongoro Conservation Area, and finally ending up in Serengeti National Park. Now, Arusha National Park, they call the Little Serengeti because you see many of the same animals that you do in the Serengeti. And it's also where John Wayne's 1962 film Hatari, which means danger, was filmed. And we saw the Hatari Lodge, which stands on the property formerly owned by Hardy Kruger, one of the film's co-stars. Arusha is one of the smallest national parks in Tanzania, and it's approximately 53 square miles. And if we compare that with the town of Greenwich, which is 67 square miles, it's about 80% the size of our town. And there we saw giraffe, Cape buffalo, warthogs, and zebra. But one of the most amazing parts and exciting parts of our trip was on the left-hand side, you can see a cheetah hiding there. And our guide, who had been giving tours for 15 years, had never seen a cheetah in the park. They had migrated to other areas. He had heard a sighting by one of the other guides, but he didn't believe the sighting. And we were coming back at the end of our safari ride, and bounding across the road comes this cheetah, and then it quickly hides into the bush. So I've never seen our guide drive in reverse so quickly to capture this moment. And then you can see on the right a second cheetah that we were privileged to see. But you can see how they really blend in with their habitat. One of the best places to see forest primates is in Arusha, such as the black and white Columbus monkey on the left-hand side. It's also called the bishop's monkey. It has a very white tail. And the bishop monkeys live high in the tree canopy and often sun themselves in the morning, so you can see it camouflaged right there. And then in the middle is the blue monkey, and one also cleaning and brushing her young. We saw warthogs. It's the only African wild pig that's commonly seen by day. They have a dark, coarse mane and upward curving tusks and are named after the wart-like growths on their faces. Females have 2 and males have 4 warts. On the right-hand side is the water buffalo. This is a distinctive ox-like animal with curved horns that live in large herds on the savanna, but smaller herds in the forested areas. Moving now to wildness of God's kingdom. The zebras and wildebeest have a great symbiotic relationship and can benefit from one another. Zebras normally feed on the top parts of the grass or the tall grass, while allowing the wildebeest to easily access their preferred grass, which is the short grass. Zebras have great eyesight, which helps them spot predators from afar. You typically see them in twos facing opposite directions, keeping a lookout. Wildebeest have a great sense of hearing, allowing them to hear predators from afar. So both species have an ally to help warn them of danger. Zebras are well known to have an incredible capacity for memory and can often retrace their route from previous migrations, much to the benefit of wildebeest that may have gone astray. In turn, wildebeest are very adept at finding water sources, a useful ability for both species in the drier seasons. Because of the late December and early January rains, we were blessed and amazed to witness an early migration in the Serengeti. Hundreds and hundreds of zebra and wildebeest could be seen for miles, sometimes running alongside our Range Rovers or crossing the road ahead of us. Next, I'd like to talk about the majesty of God's kingdom. We were up early and dressed by flashlight for a 6 a.m. departure for a sunrise game drive in Tarangire National Park, renowned for its abundant elephant population and the baobab trees. There are approximately 6,000 elephants in the park, and the females live in close-knit herds, and the oldest cloud plays the matriarch. And we saw many, many herds with their babies up close. We were so close to these elephants, we could hear them chewing, we could smell them, we could hear their strength as they tugged at the vegetation. These elephants eat up to 330 pounds of vegetation in 24 hours. Next, we saw lions. On the left is a female lion and then a male lion, and then 3 lions dozing in the tree, probably after a good meal. Most of the hunting is done by the females. On one of the morning game drives, we see 3 lions stalking their prey, which are wildebeest, for breakfast. And the lions were split up and they were coming towards the wildebeest from different directions to try and surround them. And in the majesty of God's kingdom, we heard the baboons crying loudly to warn the wildebeest. And you can see several baboons scampering down palm trees. They would sleep there in the night to keep safe from predators. We heard ducks that were crying out their warning too. And then 2 vultures, which you see here, are perched in a tree, hoping to scavenge for a meal. And then 2 hyenas came into our sight as well too, which is a rare occurrence. And the lions disappeared over a hill. We tried to see where they might have gone to. We didn't see the end of it, but it was something that reminded me of Job, chapter 12, verses 7 through 10. But ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky, and they will tell you. Or speak to the earth, and it will teach you. Or let the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of God has done this? In this hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind. Moving now to the diversity of God's kingdom. Tanzania is one of the world's most bird-rich destination with over 1,100 species. You can see here the gray-crowned crane, which mostly like the moist wetlands throughout Tanzania. Next is the aptly named superb starling, which is one of the 20 starling species. The lilac-breasted roller, which is perched in the wooded savanna habitat. The monarch flycatcher. The marabou stork, which can reach a height of 5 feet and a wingspan of 12 feet. And the woodland kingfisher with its bright blue back, wing panel and tail, and red upper bill. We only saw 1 leopard during our travels. It's a very solitary animal, and they're powerful enough to carry an antelope or an impala, which is its favorite food, up into the tree to keep it safe from other carnivores. Hippos are typically found in herds of 10 or more, presided over by a dominant male. Hippo's skin is very thin, and they have no sweat glands, which means they can dehydrate, easily overheat. So they spend their days submerged in water, often only with their ears, eyes, and nostrils showing. Giraffe is the world's tallest animal, and it can grow to 18 feet. Giraffe's main food is leaves, especially from the top of acacia trees, which you can see here, where its amazing 18-inch tongue grasps the acacia leaves, being very careful not to avoid the large, long thorns that you can see there. So I hope you've been able to share, I've been able to share a snapshot of the wonder, majesty, wildness, and diversity of God's kingdom throughout Tanzania, and the awestruck feeling of just being such a small speck in the cycle of life. I'd like to show a short video of a thrilling and beautiful moment of a family of giraffes running alongside our Range Rover. So with that, I'd like to turn the program over to Karen and Cheryl to tell you about the plans that they've made following our trip.
Habari asubuhi.
Habari asubuhi.
Good morning. How is everybody today? Thank you for coming, and thank you, Debbie, Jane, and Paige for a fantastic presentation. I'm often asked how this all came about. I heard a sermon at Christ Church, Greenwich. Reverend Lee Walker said personally to me, "What are you doing with the gifts God has given you?" Long story short, we're building a school. And Karen will tell you more about how that all came about. The reason this photo is on the slide, in the slideshow, is this is the village chairman of the village where the school has been built. They call him Munyakiti. We sat with the Munyakiti and all the elders of the villages and planned this school together. It is their school, and they are extremely proud of it. They do their part. They provide the desks, the benches. They provide the uniforms. We still sit with the elders. Karen is now sitting with us too. And the fact that he came, he hasn't been the village chairman for many years. We've had many, many more. But he came to greet the safari, and I don't know, it just touched my heart that he was there, because without him and without the elders, this school would not have happened. So, thank you.
Hello?
Yes.
I think some of you have heard this story before, but Cheryl was in Tanzania with the Lords, if anyone here remembers Debbie and Bill Lord, and a couple of their children. And she emailed me one day, "We're going to visit Toledo's mama, say hello. They've moved, there's no school where their children can go to. They'd like help building a school. Don't worry, I'm only going to look." I woke up in the morning and there was another email. Guess what? There were 400 men, women, and children waiting for us. They had dug the foundation for the classroom, first classroom. We are building a school. And Bill Lord stepped up and donated a nice piece of, change, so to speak, and we raised the rest of the money. That was in maybe the third week of January, and March 8th I flew over and we had the dedication of the beginning of Puto. That was March of 2008, right?
Correct.
96 children showed up. 98 children. I'd like you to tell that because
Okay.
it's in your heart.
One classroom took us 1 month to build one classroom. I was the project manager. I had no idea how to build a classroom in Tanzania. I didn't know there were different kinds of cement blocks. I know a lot now. Anyway, we built one classroom. 98 children showed up. Karen came, and Reverend Pam Strobel, and the bishop of the Diocese of Mount Kilimanjaro, his wife Martha, and all of the elders, all of the mamas, and we had a huge celebration. So fast forward, we have 751 students. There's rainwater harvesting tanks to capture all the water when it does rain.
We fill those with a water tank when it doesn't rain because there are 12 of the 14 teachers live on campus, and there is no running water and no electricity here, and so they need water to cook, plus we provide porridge, or we don't, but we're able to raise the money through the Greenwich Rotary to provide porridge every day for all of the students. And you need water to cook porridge, and we also employ 2 women to cook the porridge, and then we built a cookhouse so they could cook the porridge. If anybody's ever read the story, When You Give a Mouse a Cookie, this has been when you give a mouse a cookie tale, because every year we learn new things, and it's been an incredible gift. I have to admit, the end of the 90s, I sort of wanted to get rid of this ministry. Like, could someone else take this over? I don't really know where it's going. And I'm very thankful to the Holy Spirit that it stuck with me and that Cheryl and I have been partners to build this amazing school. And this is the dedication of a new teacher's house. Funds from Christ Church helped build this. We're cutting the ribbon. They did a different style this year, so each teacher has a little apartment suite of 2 rooms. They cook outside in a cookhouse. They don't have any, indoor cooking facilities or any indoor plumbing. And this was part of the celebration when the safari was there. The ribbon cutting was super exciting.
Do you want me to tell you this story? Yes. Okay. Her name is Neema, and in Swahili that means grace. Grace is a student at the secondary school that we are also funding and refurbishing. And she is a Form 4 student, and we're all there in January. In December, they go home for the month, and Neema went home to find out that her father had sold her into marriage to an old Maasai man, which is illegal in Tanzania for anybody under 18 years old. So Neema walked for 8 hours to get back to the school to tell the headmaster what had happened. Karen and Cheryl have learned that we don't get involved. The elders do take care of everything if we're patient. So she went into hiding at her sister's house, her married sister's house, And in 1 week, the elders reported her to the police. The father was brought in. There was conversation. The promised cow for the marriage was returned. And Naima came back to school. So
what's next? I will do this quickly. After the safari, we received a very generous gift, donation from some friends, old friends of Cheryl's, who are new friends of mine. And we felt that we were ready to leverage what we had learned in all the work we've done with Endaputo and El Joro, the secondary school. And so we visited a nearby elementary school. Let's backtrack that Endaputo became a government school because after you build 3 classrooms, you're a government school. We didn't know that. Suddenly the government showed up after 3 classrooms at Endaputo and sent us some teachers. Before that, we had hired teachers ourselves.
And also they planted the Tanzanian flag. That was another
Yes, and they
clue.
put up that sign. So anyway, this is another primary school, which is K through 7 in the district. And as you can see, this would be a hard place to go and study. But nevertheless, 350 primary school students have been going to this school. And so we decided with this $20,000 unexpected gift that we were going to help this school look like Endaputo. First, we found out how much money they needed to buy maize, and so they could have porridge. The students hadn't had porridge in 2 years. Then we found out that they had maybe 3 books per each class, so we were able, through a bookstore that we use in Arusha, to order more textbooks for them and for their teachers. This is what a classroom looked like. There's no glass in the windows. Dust storms come through. It's chilly in their winter months, what we would consider winter. Floor, rather cracked and in need of repair. This is Losanyai now. We started in June. There's a water tank here that wasn't working, so they didn't have a way to collect rainwater. Now they can collect rainwater. We'll be able to send a tank truck when they need water. So, because there are teachers living here also, and they're cooking porridge. The teachers did not have a working latrine when we started. We were able to build them a new outhouse, basically. Here are students in the new classroom. You can see there's glass, there's windows, it's painted, it's clean, it's neat, the floor is repaired, and it's not dusty. And they are ready to learn. This is when they come back from their month-long break in July. This was pretty much ready, not quite, but pretty much ready. So what do we need now? They needed 2 new classrooms in addition to the repairs that we were able to do, and they still need 2 classrooms. 2 grades share a classroom. The kindergarten meets in a church nearby. And the principal is rightly concerned and excited that now that it's fixed up, more students are going to enroll at the beginning of January. So anyway, that's transformation.
And may I just say just a few
Yes,
words?
please.
It sounds like Cheryl and Karen do all this. We have such a great team of Tanzanians. We have a contractor that we have worked with for 15 years. We have I'm not any longer the project manager. Darn it. So I only stay a month or 2 every year instead of much longer. Anyway, our driver, Ephraim, is now our project manager. And we have our finance person I've known since she was a little girl, and she works for a bank. Ha. And her father was a priest at the cathedral. So we have built over the years Tanzanians that are on the ground dedicated, faithful workers. So we really have a lot of joy in our life because of that.
Your presentation made me tear up again because seeing it all over again from your eyes is just a real gift.
Yes, Debbie has done a great job. Anything else? Do we have any questions and answers? Oh, well, we have the answers. But and thank you all for coming. But if you have some questions, yes. Wait, let me be the first to come over.
So what I'm curious is, do you get them at what, 4 years old, 5 years old kindergarten, and then up through 12 graduation, and then what happens?
We have 2 years of the first classroom. We said, we don't care how old you are. Education is here. We have a 9-year-old come for the first, but now they're from age 4 through standard 7 would be maybe 12 years old. Then they go on to Oljoro Secondary School, where we also work, and they're there for Form 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then if they pass the national exam, which, how many, it's about 30 a year.
Well, 50 to 65% of the standards, 50 to 65% of the standard 7 students, which is the equivalent of 7th grade, have passed the national exam since we've had 7th graders who are ready. And Cheryl will tell you about Kimbe.
Well, so we have had 2 graduations from Oljoro Secondary School. They're in college. Wow. We have kids in college. And one that we're going to speak very briefly, he was the 9-year-old that started. He is studying to be a brain surgeon. So we are following him closely. He's gone on. We got him into a private school fully funded by the Australian government. Yes.
Well, that was one question. I can speak loud enough. Do they learn English where we can then have them come back? And maybe even to the U.S. for education. Do they speak English? Have they taught English?
In the primary school, it's all in Swahili, the national language, and they start English slowly in the last couple of years.
As a subject, I think in 4th grade.
In primary school. It's all English when they get to secondary school. So they have to learn fast.
Where do the teachers come from, and is there a shortage of teachers there?
What a great question.
Two of the teachers are local, and are Maasai from, they can walk to school where they work. Everyone else comes from different places in Tanzania. They've gone to teachers' college. The government has placed them there. We can always use more teachers. The government doesn't have the money to employ as many teachers as they have schools that need teachers. So there are teachers who don't have positions, and that makes us very sad. But all 3 of the schools that we're now involved with have excellent teachers, but they could always use some more.
When we opened the school in 2008, over the couple of years, we employed 5 teachers. We are still paying for those 4 teachers. The government told us to fire them. And
We had a lot of conferences about whether we were going to get in trouble or not. We had conferences about whether we were going to get in trouble or not. And being the strong women that we are, we decided to tell them, you send us new teachers and we will retire the teachers that you're speaking about. And those teachers are still teaching.
Yes, and they're
because
excellent.
they seem to have sort of forgotten about it.
But every year we ask for more teachers, and every year we don't get them. So these teachers are managing very well, because even with 100 students in a classroom, they're doing okay. Any other questions? If not, we will say, Asante,
Asante
Sana.
Thank you so much for coming.